There is a small device on my kit bag that does not belong to me, brass, no larger than a thumbnail. I have carried it for 3 years, and the only time anyone ever asks about it, I say it is a unit coin, which is close enough to true that I do not feel guilty about the shortcut. What it actually is and why I carry it takes longer to explain. Her name was Petra Solis. The rest of the course called her the seat filler. I was 22 and 3 weeks out of combat deployment when I arrived at Fabi Kester for the advanced weapons and breaching qualification. 12 Marines, 2 Army specialists, a Navy corpsman who kept winning at cards, and then Petra, who showed up with kit that looked older than mine and a qualification folder that nobody at check-in could locate right away. The admin sergeant went through the stack twice. The folder came up eventually, filed under a support contractor with a similar last name, separated from the main roster by a misfiled divider, but by then the damage was already in the air. Chief Instructor Warrant Officer Dale Rennick had seen the delay, and Rennick was the kind of man who formed an opinion in the time it took him to put down his coffee. He called it a contract filler slot when he briefed the course that evening. That was the phrase. He said the battalion had sent him 14 bodies when the manifest asked for 13. The extra one had come in on a contractor line item, and he would sort it out with headquarters before the week was through. He never looked at Petra while he said it. She sat in the 3rd row and wrote in her green notebook, and if she heard her status announced to a room of strangers, her face did not record it. I watched her that first night because she was the one person I could not read. Everyone else was performing something. Confidence, fatigue, a studied lack of concern. Petra just sat there with her pen and her notebook and her brass badge pinned to the chest strap of her plate carrier, and she wrote, "I could not read the badge from where I sat. I assumed it was a unit device of some kind or a memento. I did not think about it again." The first 2 days of the course ran live fire lanes, pistol to carbine transitions, shoot, move, communicate, controlled pairs at close range, a timed run on the vehicle mock-up that separated the people who had trained from the people who had practiced. Petra ran the mock-up clean, 4 seconds faster than anyone else on the first iteration, 5 seconds faster on the second. Rennick watched and said nothing. The 3rd row seat filler had put up good numbers, and the simplest way to handle that was to not mention it. On the morning of the 3rd day, Rennick pulled her from the roster. He did it before the class assembled, standing with her near the vehicle yard fence, while the rest of us staged gear. I was close enough to hear the shape of it without catching every word. Something about the qualification folder. It had been reviewed, and the listed prerequisite block showed only a standard combat support credential, not the advanced certification the course required. Whether that was an administrative error or a genuine gap in her record, Rennick was not in a position to assume. He was sending her to the rear element to wait while he got clarification from battalion. It would take a day, maybe 2. He was sorry for the inconvenience. Petra looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Yes, warrant officer," and picked up her kit. That was it. No argument. She walked toward the rear bay, with her bag over one shoulder and her green notebook under her arm, and by the time Rennick had turned back to the rest of us, she was already 50 meters away and not looking back. The class moved to the vehicle yard. We staged around the breaching range, an 80-meter lane of simulated IED placements, 3 concrete barriers, and 2 vehicle hulks positioned to channel movement through a narrow kills zone. Rennick ran the briefing in the way I had come to expect from him. Precise, economical, no tolerance for questions that could have been answered by paying attention. We were going to walk the lane in 2-man teams, mark all simulated placements, then pull back and debrief. Clean, 45 minutes, tops. At 9:14, the lane went hot. Not a training simulation. The range NCO called it over the net first, and Rennick confirmed it on the second call. 2 vehicles in the yard that had been staged there overnight from a forward logistics point had not been fully swept before delivery. The route clearance team that was supposed to have cleared them had logged a partial sweep and moved on. 1 device confirmed on the engine compartment of the lead hulk. Possibility of secondary devices not yet assessed. The course froze. 14 students, 1 warrant officer, 2 range safety NCOs, and not 1 person present with a current EOD qualification. The nearest EOD element was 40 minutes out by vehicle, longer if the road south of the wire was being watched, which it had been on and off for the past week. Rennick got on the radio. He was professional about it, calm, clipped, no panic in his voice. but I watched his eyes move to the vehicle yard and stay there. And I understood that the 40-minute wait was not a clean math problem. If there were secondary devices and one of them was on a timer or a pressure line connected to the lane's existing infrastructure, 40 minutes was a different number. I do not know what made me turn around. Maybe it was movement at the rear bay. Maybe it was that I had spent the last 3 days half watching her, and the habit had not quite broken. Whatever it was, I turned, and Petra Solis was walking back across the yard, with her kit bag over one shoulder, and a white-painted hard case in her other hand that had not been visible before. She walked straight to Rennick. She said something I could not hear. He started to answer her, with the posture of a man who has already made a decision and intends to enforce it. Shoulders level, weight back, the look of someone about to redirect a problem back to where it came from. Then she held out the hard case and opened it, and whatever was in it made him stop talking mid-word. His posture did not change right away. It took him a full 3 or 4 seconds to go through what I can only describe as a private recalibration, the kind that happens when a man realizes the information he has been working from does not match the information he is looking at. I watched his face go through 3 distinct expressions: dismissal, recognition, something that had no clean name, before he stepped back and handed her the radio without saying anything else. What Petra Solis had in that hard case was a Level IV explosive ordnance disposal certification packet, the full documentation, not a wallet card. Her actual qualification folder, the one that had been misfiled since before she deployed the first time, listed her base credential. The hard case had the rest: 2 theater citations, an advanced breach clearance subqualification, 9 confirmed IED neutralizations on record, and a classification supplement that detailed 4 solo neutralizations for which no ceremony was ever held because the locations were sensitive and she had specifically requested that they not be announced. None of that was in the folder on Rennick's desk. The folder on his desk had her name and her basic credential and the wrong divider tab, and that was what he had made his decision from. She suited up at the range wire. She worked alone. She did not ask for a partner, and no one present was qualified to be one. Rennick had the range safety NCO set a 200-meter perimeter and told the rest of the class to move to the concrete barricade at the north end of the yard. I watched from the top of a Jersey barrier with my hands tight on the edge of the concrete. And I want to be honest about that. I was frightened, not of Petra, of the vehicles, of the invisible math of secondary placements I could not see and she was about to walk into. She entered the lane at 9:41. She moved differently in the suit. Slower in the obvious way. The gear adds weight, limits vision, cuts the range of motion, but slower also in some deeper way, as if the suit was a signal she gave herself. Here is where we go quiet. Her movements had a quality I recognized from the best shooters I had been around, the ones who went calm when the situation wanted them to go fast. She swept the lead vehicle in sections, working from the confirmed device toward the engine mount and then around to the undercarriage. She marked the first placement with a yellow flag and moved on without stopping. She found the second device on the undercarriage of the trail vehicle 15 minutes in. The third was not on either vehicle. It was on the concrete barrier we had been staged against 20 minutes earlier. She found it on her third pass of the lane perimeter, crouched in the dust beside the base of the barrier. And I will not describe what it felt like to understand where we had all been standing. I will only say that Rennick's hand came down flat on the top of the Jersey barrier I was on, hard, and he did not move it for a long time. The fourth device was buried. Low metal. She had the subqualification for it, the one buried in the classification supplement. She found it 32 minutes into the lane, in the dust between the 2 vehicle hulks. By a method I could not follow from the perimeter, I watched her crouch and stay crouched for 6 minutes without moving. No one on the perimeter spoke during those 6 minutes. I became aware of my own breathing, and then tried to stop being aware of it. The range safety NCO was counting under his breath. I could see his lips. Rennick was not counting. Rennick was absolutely still in a way that I had not seen in him across 3 days of instruction, and it took me a moment to understand that the stillness was not calm. It was the specific immobility of a man who has understood that there is nothing left for him to do, and the outcome is entirely someone else's. Then she stood and marked the placement and keyed her radio and said, "Lane clear, 4 devices, ready for your sweep team. 47 minutes total, start to finish." She walked out of the lane, pulled her helmet and visor and set the hard case on the hood of Rennick's vehicle. She did not say anything to anyone. She went to the water point, drank, and sat on the ground against the rear tire of the nearest truck with her green notebook. She was writing in it before the range sweep team had even reached the first flag. Rennick stood at the hood of his truck for a long time with the classification supplement in his hand. I watched him read it. He read it once, then went back and read something in the middle section again. The range safety NCO came up beside him, and Rennick handed him the document, and the NCO read it and put it back down on the hood without saying anything. The rest of the course was quiet in the way that has nothing to do with noise. 14 people standing in a vehicle yard, in the full weight of understanding that the woman their instructor had sent to the rear bay that morning had just walked into a live 4-device lane alone and cleared it clean, and the paper record that would have told Rennick who she was had been sitting in the wrong slot since before any of us had met her. Rennick walked to where she was sitting. She looked up. She did not stand, which I think surprised him. She just looked up from her notebook, with the same unhurried attention she'd had in the briefing tent from day one. He stood there for a moment. Then he came to attention and rendered a formal salute, there in the dust, in front of the whole course, with no one having told him to do it. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she closed her notebook, stood, and returned it. That was everything. She did not say anything else. Rennick went back to his truck and got on the radio, and I understood from the tone of the call that, whatever he was telling Battalion, he would be saying it plainly and without editorializing. The folder on his desk was going to be corrected. The course roster was going to be corrected. That was the part he could fix, and he was fixing it. The part he could not fix was the 3 days. That was already spent. She was reinstated to the course that afternoon and finished first in the overall ranking. The brass badge I noticed on her first day, the one I took for a unit coin, is a Master EOD technician device, the small kind that goes on a chest strap and not a dress uniform. She left it on the hood of Rennick's truck when the course ended. Whether she forgot it or left it on purpose, I do not know. I picked it up before anyone else did, and I have not put it down since. I know what the badge says now. I could read it by the second afternoon, but I think about how long it sat there on her chest strap in that briefing tent, in plain view of 14 Marines and a warrant officer, and how none of us thought to look. That is the thing about a hidden record. It does not hide. It sits exactly where it was placed, waiting for someone with the patience to read it. Petra Solis had carried hers for years. It never made her loud. It only made her ready, for the lane, for the radio call, for the moment when the math became simple, and the only question was who in that yard was qualified to walk in. She was the only answer. She had always been the only answer. We just had not read the badge.